Some houses are best left undisturbed. They stand as silent sentinels of the past, their walls whispering secrets that are better left unheard. These houses, with their creaking floors and shadowy corners, hold memories that are not always pleasant. They are places where time seems to stand still, where the air is thick with the weight of forgotten stories and lost souls. Blackwood Manor is one such house. Blackwood Manor is one of them. Its very name sends shivers down the spines of those who hear it. The manor has stood for centuries, its once grand facade now a crumbling testament to the passage of time. The windows, long since shattered, gape like empty eye sockets, and the doors hang askew, as if the house itself is weary of standing. In the sleepy town of Ravenwood, there's a mansion that everyone fears, Blackwood Manor. The townsfolk speak of it in hushed tones, their voices tinged with a mix of fear and reverence. They tell tales of strange lights flickering in the windows at night, of ghostly figures seen wandering the grounds, and of eerie sounds that echo through the empty halls. It is a place that has long been shrouded in mystery and dread. Overgrown vines, crumbling walls, and an eerie fog that clings like a shroud. The manor is a place where nature has begun to reclaim what was once hers. The vines twist and turn, wrapping themselves around the decaying structure like the fingers of a long-forgotten lover. The fog, thick and impenetrable, seems to have a life of its own, swirling and shifting as if it is trying to hide the manor from prying eyes. Locals say it's alive and hungry. They speak of the house as if it is a living, breathing entity, one that feeds on the fear and despair of those who dare to enter. They tell stories of people who have gone into the house and never come out, of strange occurrences that defy explanation, and of a malevolent presence that seems to lurk in the shadows. But on Halloween night, 3 friends, Alex, Sam and Julia, decided to explore it. They were young and fearless, their hearts filled with the thrill of adventure and the promise of the unknown. They had heard the stories, of course, but they dismissed them as mere superstition, the product of overactive imaginations and too many ghost stories told around the campfire. Armed with flashlights, they approached the mansion, their laughter tinged with nervousness. The night was dark and still, the only sound the crunch of leaves underfoot and the occasional hoot of an owl. As they drew closer, the manor loomed before them, its dark silhouette stark against the moonlit sky. Their laughter grew quieter, replaced by a sense of unease that they couldn't quite shake. The door creaked open with a mere touch, as if it had been expecting them. It swung open slowly, the hinges groaning in protest, revealing a dark and foreboding interior. The air that wafted out was cold and damp, carrying with it the scent of mold and decay. It was as if the house was exhaling, releasing a breath that had been held for far too long. Inside, the air was icy, thick with the smell of mold and decay. The walls were covered in a thick layer of dust, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling like tattered curtains. The floorboards creaked underfoot, and every step seemed to echo through the empty halls. It was a place that had been abandoned for years, left to rot and decay in silence. Dust danced in their flashlight beams, and every shadow seemed to have eyes. The light cut through the darkness, revealing glimpses of the past. A broken chair, a tattered curtain, a forgotten toy. But it also seemed to bring the shadows to life, making them shift and move as if they were watching, waiting. The door slammed shut behind them. Alex's laugh wavered. The sound was sudden and jarring, breaking the silence like a gunshot. Alex tried to laugh it off, but his voice was shaky, betraying his fear. The others exchanged nervous glances, their bravado beginning to wane. They wandered through dark, echoing rooms. Each room seemed to be a mirror of the last, filled with the same decaying furniture and the same oppressive silence. The air was thick with dust, and the only sound was the creak of the floorboards and the occasional drip of water from a leaky pipe. Sam found a staircase leading to the basement. It was narrow and steep, the steps worn and uneven. The darkness below seemed to beckon, promising secrets and horrors that were best left undiscovered. "Let's check it out," he whispered. His voice was barely audible, swallowed by the darkness. The others hesitated, but curiosity got the better of them. They nodded, their faces pale and tense. The steps creaked ominously under their weight. Each step seemed to echo through the house, a reminder of their presence. The air grew colder as they descended, and the darkness seemed to close in around them. In the basement, their flashlights flickered, revealing strange red symbols on the walls. The symbols were unlike anything they had ever seen, twisted and jagged, as if they had been carved in a fit of rage. The walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, and the air was thick with the scent of blood and decay. Julia shivered, sensing a presence. It was as if the very walls were watching them, waiting for the right moment to strike. She could feel eyes on her, cold and unblinking, and a chill ran down her spine. She turned. Nothing there, yet she felt watched. The darkness seemed to close in around her, and she could hear the faint sound of whispering just on the edge of her hearing. It was a voice, low and insistent, but she couldn't make out the words. Suddenly a whisper, "Leave, or stay forever!" The voice was clear now, and it seemed to come from all around them. It was a voice filled with malice and despair, and it sent a shiver down their spines. Alex gripped his flashlight tighter. "We're just hearing things," he stammered. His voice was shaky, and he could feel his heart pounding in his chest. He tried to convince himself that it was just their imaginations, but the fear in his eyes betrayed him. But then Sam's flashlight died. The darkness was sudden and complete, swallowing them whole. They were plunged into a world of shadows and whispers, and the fear was palpable. When it flickered back on, Julia was gone. The light revealed an empty space where she had been standing, and a sense of dread settled over them. They called her name, their voices echoing through the darkness, but there was no response. Her flashlight lay on the ground, still lit. It cast a weak, flickering light, illuminating the empty space around it. It was as if she had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only a faint trace of her presence. Panic set in. "Julia?" Alex called. Silence. The only response was the echo of his own voice, bouncing off the walls and fading into the darkness. They were alone, and the fear was overwhelming. They raced upstairs, but the hallway had changed, stretching endlessly. It was as if the house itself was playing tricks on them, twisting and distorting the space around them. Every door they tried led to the same room, and the walls seemed to close in around them. Every door led to the same room, mirrors reflecting their terrified faces, except their reflections were smiling. The mirrors seemed to mock them, their own faces twisted into cruel, mocking grins. It was a nightmare come to life, and there was no escape. The whispers grew louder, mixed with cruel laughter. It was a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, filling the air with a sense of dread. The laughter was cold and hollow, and it sent shivers down their spines. They ran, but the hall twisted, trapping them in a nightmare loop. No matter which way they turned, they found themselves back where they started. The same twisted reflections staring back at them from the mirrors. By morning, Alex, Sam, and Julia had vanished without a trace. The house was silent once more, the only evidence of their presence, the faint echoes of their laughter, and the lingering sense of dread that hung in the air. Stand outside Blackwood Manor at midnight, and you might hear their laughter, echoes of those who entered and never found their way out. The house stands as a silent sentinel, a reminder of the horrors that lie within. It is a place where the past and present collide, where the living and the dead are forever entwined. And it is a place that will continue to haunt the dreams of those who dare to remember.